we didn't have to file a lawsuit for the world to know that there's a problem from a hiring standpoint in regards to minority coaches in the National Football League. The numbers speak for themselves.
Right.
We filed the lawsuit so that we could create some change. And that's important to me. I think we're at a fork in the road right now.
Former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores is joining former quarterback Colin Kaepernick in stating the obvious about the NFL's problems with racial discrimination. Speaking out following the blockbuster lawsuit he filed Tuesday against the NFL and 3 of its teams alleging racial discrimination in hiring practices. The Dolphins fired Flores last month despite 2 winning seasons. Flores claims discrimination was a factor in his firing, which the Dolphins deny. There is currently just one black head coach, Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin, among the NFL's 32 teams that profit from a labor force that is nearly 60% black. Flores' class action lawsuit takes aim specifically at the league's Rooney Rule, requiring teams to interview minority candidates for top vacancies, alleging that he's endured several interviews just to satisfy that requirement, including just last week with the New York Giants. 3 days before that job interview, Flores received an accidental congratulatory text message from his former boss, Patriots coach Bill Belichick, on landing the job. The text was apparently intended for a different Brian Daboll, who the team had already settled on for their new head coach. Flores called the episode humiliating, and the Giants insist that they interviewed him in good faith and nearly hired him. For its part, the NFL says it will fight. In a statement, the league disingenuously touted its deep commitment to equitable employment practices, adding that diversity is core to everything we do, don't laugh, and calling Flores' claims without merit without calling for an investigation. Apparently, the NFL is under the impression that slapping end racism in the end zone and getting Jay-Z to produce a hip-hop Super Bowl halftime show signifies a commitment. From the same league that blackballed Colin Kaepernick for kneeling during the national anthem to protest racial injustice. Today, Flores now acknowledged that his lawsuit could similarly end his career in coaching.
I understand the risks, and yes, it was a difficult decision, and I went back and forth. And like I said, I love coaching. I do. But this is bigger than that.
Joining me now is Hugh Jackson, an 18-year NFL veteran coach. Most recently, he was head coach of the Cleveland Browns, now head coach at Grambling State University. And Angela Rye, newly minted ESPN special correspondent, and I am so excited about that. I'm going to put a pin in it because I'm going to start cheering for you right here on this set, but I'm going to hold for just a second and talk to the coach first. I'm going to go to the coach first just because you have been in this position before. So Brian Flores is alleging the Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, offered him $100,000 per loss if he would lose. And I know this is something that you were quite familiar with yourself because you have made very similar allegations. Talk about this idea of paying a team to lose and creating, like, plans over a certain period of time to have loss after loss after loss after loss.
I really appreciate that you said creating a plan, because that's really what it was. I don't want anyone to think that anybody offered me money for every game to go lose. What I was brought into was a 4-year plan, a structure that talked about aggregate rankings, talked about being the youngest team in the league, talked about the number of draft picks, talked about a different number of categories that we would get paid for. And none of them talked about winning. Winning was in year 3 and 4. And coaches, as coaches, when you talk about bonus structure, and this was seen as a bonus plan, that bonus plan wasn't presented to me until I was on the job for about a month and a half. The bonus plan was not structurally put together and finished until the summer, and that was in June. And when I really looked at it, I really didn't understand it, because as a coach, we know one or two things. It's winning and losing. There's really nothing else that we can be compensated for or that we want to be compensated for. So as I started to look at my team, as we started playing the preseason, last year at Cincinnati in 2015, I was Pro Football's Offensive Coach of the Year. So I know what good football looks like. And I knew we didn't have a very good team to compete. So the difference with me is when people talk about tanking, see, there's different forms of tanking. Mm-hmm. There's the situation as to lose, but then there's tanking where you build a team that cannot win, where you don't have enough talent to compete at the highest level so you can win. Yeah. And to me, that's a whole different animal. And then you put a minority coach out in front of it, when there's only in a 101-year history. then that's a problem. So all the narratives become the coach can't coach, I don't know what he's doing. And you fight these things as a coach. But the money that was given to everybody at the end of the year, based on whatever those percentages was for obviously working within that structure. And I was told that this is something that they had at Pilot J Flying. I was told that this is something that kept the group collaborative. I fought against it. I told the owner, I'm not interested in extra money. I thought he paid me well enough. I took that money and acquired better players for a football
that can win, because that's the whole point. You know, and Angela, this is a league that, you know, I grew up an obsessive football fan. I got out of it because over time I couldn't love the game as much. I mean, this is a league that it used to be about 70% of those players were black. It's now down under 60%. You know, fewer parents are letting their kids play because of issues like head injuries, but just the treatment of black people. How can you possibly have a league that has 70% black players and only come up with 3 or 4 people who can ever be a head coach? They know the game better than anybody else. Where are the coaches? Where are the people in management? Your thoughts?
And I think, Joy, we have to ask the question, where are the opportunities? But before we do that, I just want to take a moment, Coach Jackson, to commend you. The first day of Black History Month, you announced this groundbreaking name, image, and likeness deal for those athletes at Grambling. And they finally have the opportunity to have a real income to help support their families. Many of us know there are too many students that are supporting their families off of scholarship money. So just kudos to you. Thank you for making Black history and therefore American history. And Joy, to your question, you know, I think that we really have to acknowledge the fact that the NFL's pipeline is broken, right? Coach Flores in his lawsuit also making Black history, and as our good sister friend Erin Haynes said to us, cited all of the ancestors in the first couple of lines in this lawsuit. What I think we have to also acknowledge is he hits right head on in the injunctive relief portion of this lawsuit, which of course is rooted in the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Section 1981, which says it is prohibited to discriminate based on race as it relates to employment contracts. In the injunctive relief part of this, he makes it very clear that players actually need to be involved in the hiring process, that there needs to be a diverse committee that can weigh in on whether or not a coach is hired, an offensive or a defensive coordinator is hired, or a GM. And that is where the rubber meets the road. We know that the NFL has traditionally been known as a good old boys network, and whoever does not march to the beat of that drum doesn't really have a pathway. We're watching Brian Flores interview today, calm, collected, cool, and this is the same person they want us to believe is an angry Black man, right? And those labels you carry with you despite their truth or not, right? And that is the real issue. When you have folks who look like you in decision-making positions, whether they are running the field or they are in C-suite positions, that makes all the difference in the world. So the first thing that has to be done in the NFL, the culture has to change, and that means the people who are in positions of power to make decisions also have to change.
Amen to that. And I mean, Coach, you know, it is a situation where, you know, I wonder, even when you were, you know, coaching in the NFL, was there discouragement to even speak out on Black issues? We know that Colin Kaepernick, he's been expelled from the league. Brian Flores was one of the first people to come out and make a statement after George Floyd's murder. He was very forthright. He said he vividly remembers the Colin Kaepernick conversations. The idea that players were kneeling in support of social justice was something some people couldn't wrap their head around. I haven't seen the same outrage from people of influence when the conversation turns to Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and most recently George Floyd. So he spoke out because it feels like the NFL is disingenuous. You know, they want to do the black square kind of support for Black people, but they don't want to actually invest the money and in the talent to allow people to thrive. And it seems like he's not really popular for being that guy who speaks out on racial justice.
Well, it seems that way. I hope this is not just about racial justice. I'm talking about this situation because there were so many different, you know, areas that Brian touched, but obviously we have an issue. Let's just be honest. I mean, we've been very transparent about that. There's a problem in the National Football League with minority hiring practices.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
I mean, 101 years, only 19. But the thing that's changing, I hope everybody can recognize it. I think the goalpost is starting to move again. I think we can see that there's more minority GMs than there are coaches right now. And we got to look and see. I'm honest, they're coming from Harvard and Columbia, and that's great. That's great. So it says to me that we don't want the real coaches no more. We're into this analytic world all of a sudden, and the guys who worked hard and have their own algorithm, those guys don't matter anymore. And that's very interesting.
Last word to you, Angela Rye. Do you think he winds up ever coaching again? And if he doesn't, does that add to his legal, the power of his lawsuit?
Well, perhaps, Joy. What I hope is that they take a real look at what he suggests in the injunctive relief portions, again, of this lawsuit. They are more than reasonable. So if they're willing to do some of that, there are absolutely going to be folks on those hiring committees, absolutely going to be owners. There's not one black owner in the league. When that changes, Brian Flores' opportunities change, and so do Colin Kaepernick's and everybody who comes behind them to make a dent in what needs to change.
Amen, amen, amen. Hugh Jackson, please let us know if you join that class action suit or get involved in it in any way. Angela Rye, you're going to have me watching ESPN. I thought after Jamel wasn't there, I was like, I'll never watch ESPN again. But you know what? I'm going to watch it again because you're there. I appreciate you, sister. I'm going to watch you. Yeah, no, we love Jamel, and I'm watching her new thing, too. Oh, there's so many things for me to be, like, getting in on Black Girl Magic everywhere. Thank you very much, sister. Appreciate you. Okay.